So we're very excited to have our next guests up here, Eren Ozmen and Steve Lindsey from Sierra Nevada, with us at this year's conference. We're going to have Stephanie Murphy, the owner and chairman of MEI Technologies and Alpha Space Test and Research Alliance. We just call them Alpha Space in my world. Here to introduce our guest. Stephanie, besides being the owner and chairman of both those companies, has recently also been selected to receive the NASA Exceptional Technology Achievement Medal for the development of the material on ISS experiment platform, and that'll be awarded here in the next month and a half down at JSC. MEI Technologies and Alpha Space are great partners to NASA and the ISS National Lab, and MEI Technologies is also a generous Palladium sponsor of this conference. So please help me welcome Stephanie to the stage.
Good morning. Dream, innovate, and inspire. These aren't just words that Sierra Nevada Corporation has posted to their website or used as a snappy tagline. These words are the creed by which Eren Ozmen and her husband, Fadi Ozmen, have conducted their business at Sierra Nevada since acquiring it in 1994. Along with Fadi, Eren's steadfast commitment to these principles is what has propelled Sierra Nevada to become one of the most honored U.S. companies in the space business, and Eren to become one of the industry's most respected leaders. Joining Eren on stage today will be Steve Lindsey, Sierra Nevada Vice President for Space Exploration and a former NASA astronaut, clearly someone who knows what it means to dream, innovate, and inspire. In a very short while, Sierra Nevada's innovative Dream Chaser vehicle will carry cargo and astronauts to the ISS, increasing both crew and cargo capability and capacity. Dream Chaser and all of the Sierra Nevada team behind it, which I think most of them are right here in the front, serve as the embodiment of this year's conference theme, Accelerating Our Future in Space, and we look forward to hearing more about that from Eren and Steve. To help us do that, we have Sam Shamimi moderating the conversation with Eren and Steve. Sam is the director for the International Space Station at NASA headquarters within the Human Exploration and Operations Mission Directorate. His duties consist of ensuring safe and productive ISS operations and utilization, implementing policy and programmatic direction, and communicating progress and issues with the White House and with Congress. Sam has been a leader in human spaceflight for 30 years. His experience spans human spaceflight, Earth and space science as both a contractor and a civil servant. His background includes development and testing of complex space systems and real-time operations. His career has encompassed the Space Shuttle, International Space Station, Stratospheric Observatory for Infrared Astronomy, and other programs. He is a graduate of McNeese State University and has a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. Please welcome Sam Shamimi.
I was hoping for Stairway to Heaven. I still haven't figured out who in the world is controlling the music. Again, it's a pleasure to be here again this morning. This is an exciting and rare opportunity to have a leader and an important NASA partner, such as Eren Ozmen of Sierra Nevada Corporation, along with Steve Lindsey. Eren, as you've heard previously, is the chairwoman and president and co-owner with her husband Fati of Sierra Nevada Corporation. She gets many, many speaking engagements, and she doesn't take them so very often. So we're very pleased to have her here today to have our panel, our discussion here on stage. But before they get up, I believe there's a video that needs to be shown, and then I'll ask them to come join us on stage.
Dream Chaser. It's America's space plane. Made real by Eren and Fadi Ozmen, the owners and leaders of Sierra Nevada Corporation, a global leader in aerospace and national security. It's being built and readied for NASA missions right now in Colorado. The Ozmens came to the U.S. separately to pursue their advanced education and the American dream. When Eren arrived in the U.S., she spoke little English and had no financial resources. but she did have a driving entrepreneurial spirit and big dreams. At the university, she reconnected with her friend Fadi, a skilled engineer who became her best friend. Eventually, they married and set sights on growing their young family, their company, and their dreams. A quarter-century ago, the Ozmens acquired SNC and grew the small electronics company, then with a team of just 20, to now 4,000 strong. Today, SNC is a trusted multi-billion-dollar leader in aviation, national security, and space. And Dream Chaser, America's next-gen space shuttle, is set to service the International Space Station for NASA starting in 2021. Led by former NASA Space Shuttle commander and astronaut Steve Lindsey, SNC's Space Systems team has delivered spacecraft, satellite, propulsion, and tech for more than 450 missions, including to Mars, over the last 3 decades. Just a few ways SNC's teams and technology support and protect explorers and heroes. Under Eren's leadership, SNC has received numerous awards for innovation and growth. Eren is also consistently recognized by Forbes as one of America's most successful self-made women. Her unique story is an inspiration to women worldwide for what she has been able to achieve. From humble beginnings to overcoming huge obstacles, Eren Ozmen shows us that it all starts with a dream.
All right, with that, please give a warm welcome to Eren and Steve. So I'm going to be asking the questions, and Eren and Steve will be providing helpful answers. So we'll start off with Eren. Are we seeing a new and higher profile chapter for Sierra Nevada with the Dream Chaser and expansions of your company? Steve was just telling me about all the other business lines that you're now acquiring and the like.
Yes, we are. But before I start, I would like to thank you for inviting us here. I'm honored to be here also. This is a really impressive crowd, and I see many friendly faces in the crowd, so I'm really happy to be here. And Steve also, thank you for coming to do this with me today. So yeah, these are really exciting times for us. We have been heavily investing in space for many years, so now we see all the opportunities that are happening. So it's very exciting to see that, and we are getting a lot of attention for our innovative ideas in space, which we are going to talk about some of them today. So these are very, very exciting times, yeah. And our partnership with NASA definitely is a very big factor.
Yeah. Yeah. The video hinted a bit about your background, so please, we're all, me personally, am very interested in hearing a bit about your background.
Sure, yeah. So, not to give away my age, but yes. So I was 11 years old when Apollo 11 landed on the moon. So at that time, I was living on the eastern part of Turkey, really eastern part of Turkey, very close to Syrian border, Iraq, Iran, all that crazy region. But I had a really wonderful childhood. I remember there was really no conflict when I did grow up there, so I have very happy memories of my childhood. But the Apollo landing changed my life. This is something that it was extraordinary, obviously, for us. We did not have TV at the time, but we had a radio. So I just remember being glued to the radio, listening to this really amazing American accomplishment. I mean, just to me, this was like in a different dimension someplace, and it was very, very fascinating. But what was really fascinating about that was, in that moment, even just listening to the radio, I felt connected to what was happening. And I just felt so proud. And even though I had nothing to do with what was happening, it felt like I was doing something. I'm like, why am I so proud?
You felt a real connection.
Yeah, the connection was just really incredible. So I think the moon landing was just a proof that anything was possible. And it inspired me so much that I think that's when I started dreaming about coming to America, and that's how it started.
Wow. That's incredible. Very incredible.
Thank you. Yeah.
So you're a U.S. citizen now. So you're explaining you wanted to come to the U.S. and follow your dream. So you could tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So I finally came to U.S. In the early 80s. Right after college, I wanted to come here to pursue my MBA. I was 23 years old. I thought at the time that I was really old, but now when I look back, it wasn't so. And on top of that, I didn't speak English, and I did not have money. I just showed up. Actually, when I went to college 4 years in Turkey, I worked full-time. So I worked during the day, and I went to college at night, and I saved $100 a month. So that was what it took for me to just get a plane ticket and just a payment for a language school at Berkeley. So got the money and signed up to the Berkeley language program, got my ticket, got my visa, and when I just left the country, I realized that it wasn't gonna be that easy because people were all of a sudden, nobody was speaking Turkish. And I'm like, hold on a second. I don't understand anything. It was just really a kind of a crazy moment, and I started crying. I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? And there was no going back. I was just like, only just like moving forward. So I remember just arriving to San Francisco, gotten drilled by an immigration officer for 8 hours. They wouldn't let me out, and I kept trying to show him, hey, I'm going to Berkeley. There's a language program. Don't worry, I'm going to go back. And but I didn't say any of those things. I was just showing her the paper pretty much. And then, so anyways, so at the time, I really hardly knew Fadi through some of our friends. So he came here a year ago, and then he just went to University of Nevada. And so when I just got there, he's just like, hey, Eren, if you are looking for an MBA program, maybe you should apply to UNR. So I'm like, okay, well, I mean, I didn't have very many options. So here's this guy that already there. I said, okay, I will do that. So I applied, got accepted conditionally until I learned how to speak better, and then just took all the exams, GMATs and everything. So Fadi and I really became best friends. We had a pact. We were best friends. We did not date many years. We became really best friends. So if I have the courage, I'm going to tell you the story how we went from being best friends to dating. That was just like one of those moon landing moments.
I would definitely like to hear how this happened.
Okay, it's kind of a private story, so but fine. Okay, so we became really best friends. We had a pact. We became roommates, and I said, okay, I would cook for you Turkish food if you help me with my statistic classes and other things that I just didn't understand. I'm like, this is crazy. Getting my MBA, and I mean, truly, I would say that Fadi got his master's degree in electrical engineering, but he also got an MBA while I was getting my MBA, because this crazy guy would sit there and read all my books. I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? You just don't have to. It's just like, I like it. I'm like, okay, so you do that and help me. So that's a good deal. So that was our thing.
Well, maybe he had a secret plan.
Yeah, I think he did. So we both didn't know. So we are just in this like bonding, helping each other get through life. And so he had a girlfriend, really nice gal. So her parents came to town, and then she said, hey, Fadi, I want you to meet my parents. And Fadi said, okay. So they're going to have barbecue. And then Fadi goes, why don't you just come? I'm like, okay, this is your girlfriend, the parents, and go. And I shouldn't be there. And he said, Eren, free barbecue. I'm like, okay, you convinced me.
American barbecue.
Yeah, free food. Oh my God, free barbecue was a big deal at the time. But so I said, okay, I have an exam. I'm going to take my books. I can sit in the corner. You guys talk and get to know each other. and then I'll have my free barbecue and we'll go home. So anyways, that happened, and Fadi brought me some food when I was just sitting in the corner and all that. So in the morning, Fadi's girlfriend called Fadi and said, Fadi, you won't believe what my parents told me. And she said, don't waste your time with Fadi because he's going to marry Eren.
Whoa. Whoa, they were perceptive.
That is when we found out that there was something more than being best friends. And believe it or not, I just don't know. Just within a month, we were dating. It was just so crazy. We were just like, there's a movie out there like that. We were back and forth, we were confused, and we didn't want to lose our best friendship. But anyways, it worked out. Perfect. So that's it.
Right.
That's our story. Wow. So now I shared with you.
Okay,
now we are friends.
Okay, so now could you tell us a little bit about Sierra Nevada? How you started with Fatih, getting close to Fatih, and then how did you migrate to the business world in Sierra Nevada?
Sure. So Fatih started SNC earlier. So he was working on his thesis, being an electrical engineer and program, and then he was looking for a place to do his thesis, and he just ran into this guy. He was working at SNC at the time. He was their chief engineer, only 3 engineers. At the time, very small company, but they were working on the just landing systems for the carriers, Navy carriers. So Fatih was fascinated what they were doing at a very small capacity. So he wanted to do his thesis on that. So they said, okay, fine. So just no paycheck or anything, so just a free internship. So he worked on his thesis. He was really fascinated with the technology and then what the company was doing. The founders of the company started the company actually much earlier, 30 years before we even just got there. But they kept it very small. It was like, as I said, 3 engineers and the owners, and their daughter was the assistant. That was about it. That was the extent of Sierra Nevada Corporation at the time. And so I came on board a lot later. I finished my MBA program, and I just got an internship at the Reno Gazette Journal. I remember that because when I started there, I just got exposed to personal computers. Personal computers were just new on the market. And so that's where I learned how to use the personal computers to do financial planning, budgeting, and all that good stuff. And I loved it. I'm just like, okay, so computers don't make fun of my accent, and I can really connect and get things done.
You have a lot in common with my wife. She just loves technology.
Yeah, I mean, use technology to your advantage was the really deal that really helped me to get to where I am. I always just look for the opportunity to use technology. I am fascinated with my children, how they use technology today. But back in the days again, and just remember this was a long time ago. So I did that. I learned, so I felt a little more comfortable about I was producing things and felt good. But at the end of my internship, I just got a job at a local company that was about 1,200 people, mid-size, and just entry-level finance, accounting, something like that. So when I went there, I saw that they were doing everything manually. So I just suggested that, hey, maybe we can just get a personal computer. Things can be much faster. And then they said, no, we're good. I'm like, okay. So with my first paycheck, I just spent my entire paycheck. I went and got a personal computer. I brought it, put it on my desk, and then I started just doing all the projects. And they were just really surprised that I was able to do things in like days that used to take them weeks or months. And I got a promotion. I became their financial reporting manager, and that was amazing. But very briefly, I'm going to mention how I just went from this company to SNC, because this is, I don't know if it's like, if it's a common sense, if it's whatever it is, that those are the things that you approach that change your life. So one day, unions came. This was a private company, and unions tried to convince the employees that, okay, if you join the union, things are going to be great. I'm like, no, 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 no. Please don't do that. And then owners try to tell people, please don't go there. They did. So the next thing, company got sold. Everything moved to Texas. They laid off 1,200 people and closed the doors. I knew that. I mean, just like common sense, guys. But anyways, so, and then at that time, SNC also was still going through manual systems, and I'm out of a job, and I know the family. I said, hey, I can help you to automate your accounting system. I know how to do that. And they said, well, you know, we don't have much money now. That's okay. I'm just going to do it because I have nothing better else to do at the moment. That's how I really started at SNC as a financial consultant. So I go there, and I'm just looking at the bank statements. I'm looking at the books. There is no money. There is no money coming. There is no money. And I just went to Fadi. I said, Fadi, there is no money here. He's like, what do you mean? What does that mean? I'm like, it means that company is about to close the doors. And he was just like, oh my God. I said, well, let me go tell the owner. So at this what I see, I want to make sure that they see what's happening. And not only, I like to just come up with a solution when I just go with a big bad news. So I said, okay, this is really what I'm seeing. I don't have much experience, but if we do this, 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 maybe the company can survive until the next contract came in. And part of that plan was to not to pay employees until there was an Air Force contract coming up. And then they said, okay, to my surprise. Anyways, Fadi still jokes about it, that how I started at SNC, and the next thing he stopped getting paid. He's like, what just happened here? Go. So it worked. So it worked. So now we kept the doors open. We got the contract, and then we bought the company several years later, and
the rest is history, right?
Started our family, started the acquisitions of the other high-tech companies, small ones. It took us 30 years to get to where we are. So nothing happened overnight for us. It wasn't anything lottery or anything. It just every day, that was not an easy day.
Yeah, I hope that's a lesson for everybody out there.
Yes, there is no, I mean, few people in the world get the lottery, but rest of us really have to work hard every day. So that really is the deal. There are no shortcuts. The hardest thing, I would say, was to get SNC from a small business to a large company. That was the regulations, you know how it is in our government and everything. Most companies cannot make through the transition. They either get out or they are sold. And we made that transition. So here we are still growing, thanks to the confidence of our customers, our amazing management, the one sitting next to me, and our just 4,000 workforce. So, and life is good.
Yeah.
So.
Amazing story. Very amazing story.
Thank you. Thank you.
Steve, could you tell us about your journey through coming to NASA and then winding up in Sierra Nevada?
Do I really have to follow her on this?
Yes, you do.
All right. All right. Well, so my story, like Eren, I won't reveal my age, but we did have a TV, though. We had a little black and white TV. So I got to watch the moon landing, and I was certainly inspired by that, like most people in my generation were. And but kind of where I got my start is my father was an electrical engineer. His story is more amazing than mine. I don't think my story even compares to his. Anyway, he ended up an engineer, and so I always wanted to be an engineer, but from the time I was a little kid, I wanted to fly airplanes too. That's all I ever thought about was flying airplanes. And so about the time I was a junior in high school, I had heard of this. I learned about this place I'd never heard of called the Air Force Academy. And I decided, you know, if I applied there, if they accepted me, I could get a free ride scholarship, which would help out the finances of the family. But then if I did well and kept my medical clearance, I'd have a chance to go to pilot training. And so I was fortunate to get selected there. Went to Air Force Academy, graduated, went to pilot training, and flew airplanes. And I absolutely loved it. But what I missed when I was flying airplanes, when I was operational, is I always wanted a job where I could combine engineering and flying, or science and flying, combine my two passions together. And I thought, well, gosh, maybe if I go be an experimental test pilot, I could do that. And so I applied, was fortunate enough to get selected for Air Force Test Pilot School, and they also sent me to get my master's in aeronautical engineering on the way. And so then I did that, and I was a test pilot, and so here I was a test pilot, having a just wonderful job. I'd still be doing it today if I could figure out if they'd let me back in an F-16, but I don't think they will. Loved the job, and then had a bunch of friends that actually were applying to NASA to the astronaut program, and I found myself eligible because I didn't really set out necessarily to be an astronaut. And I kind of looked at the job, said, gosh, NASA does science and technology and engineering, all that stuff I love. And I get to fly just a little bit higher and faster is all. And so I applied to NASA. I think John Young once told me, you probably got your paperwork, Steve, mixed up with somebody else's, and somehow you ended up here. So I ended up at NASA. And I was truly blessed because I got to come into NASA right when the space station program was starting, before we had built anything, did a couple of science missions, and then my last 3 flights were all to the space station doing space station assembly. I got to run the astronaut office for several years and be a part of all of that, and what a great experience. Come 2011, we made all the decisions. For those of you here the last decade, the decisions, the Constellation program had been canceled because of funding, but the ISS was going strong. But you saw this commercialization thing starting to happen. We had the Cirrus-1 program going. We had the first parts of commercial crew going with CCW1 and 2. I flew my last shuttle flight, which is the final flight of Discovery, and I was looking out there, and the shuttle was retiring, which we understand the reasons why. But I thought, conceptually and commercially, wings and using the infrastructure that's all around this world, runways and things like that, made sense to me. And we learned a lot out of the space shuttle program. A lot of things went really well with the program. We had some issues with the program. Why don't we take the lessons learned from all of that and go to the next generation lifting body spacecraft to go in it? About that same time, Sierra Nevada reached out to me and said, hey, Steve, we got a deal for you. And so I went up. John Curry was there a year before I was, and so they were kind of recruiting me. So I went up and visited them. And the first thing I did was ask about Dream Chaser, the design, because I wanted to, like John did, I wanted to pick it apart and figure out what was wrong with it. And so that's exactly what I did. Technically, I picked it apart, tried to figure out what was wrong with it, and I came to the conclusion, boy, this is a really good design, and maybe I can go over here and contribute in this, and maybe eventually we can bring the concept of the space shuttle back, except this time make it commercial, make it more affordable, and make it worldwide capable so that we can do all kinds of things with it. And so that's kind of how I ended up at SNC, and ever since then, Eren has unfortunately been moving me into different roles, and I'm sure she's regretting it now. So.
All of us have a lot in common.
Yeah.
We didn't end up where we thought we were going to end up,
exactly.
or where you thought you
so
wanted
true.
to be in the beginning, right?
So true.
So life takes you in all different.
It really does.
Different places. Eren, I know you have a slide that you want to show about Sierra Nevada's vision for space.
Yeah, I think it's for the audience, so they kind of can see what we are looking at,
right,
what we are trying to do.
It's up there now.
So yeah, perfect. So this is really our vision. Obviously, we are very much aligning with NASA. So we just look to see all the requirements out there, and we are thinking big picture. We are just really looking for affordable access to space. That is all about it. And reusability, technologies with the reusability are going to make the affordability happen. You hear that probably every day, so we don't need to go into the details. But so we obviously our Dream Chaser program is very important to us. It's our biggest contract that we competitively won. We lost the first one with the crew. We were devastated, but we didn't give up, just like our mode of operation. And there was a big article about SNC's tenacity in the Space News, and I like that. I like the way that they said that never give up, just you lost, but Steve and John, our team, they just kept going. We won the cargo program. In some ways, I feel that it was a better thing for us to start with cargo and now move on to crew from a risk point of view. Obviously, this is a very risky thing, but we also now just looking at the extension of our Dream Chaser capabilities and how do we just extend those capabilities into Moon and beyond. So Steve is going to also talk about some of those things. But I mean, clearly, what really motivates us, this is really ties into our vision. For Fadi and I, this is about, we came here and somehow just beyond our wildest dreams, we are where we are. So we now look to see how do we pay it forward? What do we do with what we have right now? So this is all about a big effort to get that paying it forward to, and what is really important to us is US leadership in space. I mean, we have been a DoD contractor for 5 decades, and we really care about US. We care about the security aspect of space. We care about the advancement in space exploration. We care about the innovative ideas because we see that that innovation is really needed right now. Otherwise, we are falling behind as a country. So our passion is aligned with NASA, aligned with the administration's goals, and we feel lucky that there's just so many opportunities coming. So we feel like we are in the right place at the right time to achieve our vision. So it feels good.
That's good.
Yeah.
Steve, you want to elaborate on that as well?
Yeah, sure. So I kind of have a unique role at SNC in the group that I'm responsible for. You know, we have the Dream Chaser program, the CRS-2 program, which is really our flagship program. That's where we're focusing all of our resources, all of our time, and making sure that we provide the service that the space station program needs and when they need it. And so we've really been focusing on that. I have another part of my group that is, we call it our Advanced Development Group, and what they really do is they focus on derivative technologies from Dream Chaser for other applications. And in that group, we've done a lot of work with NASA on the other piece, the exploration piece that's going on. Multiple gateway contracts. We have multiple contracts right now on the human landing system that NASA is working to develop right now. And so we're going through all of that. And when I'm thinking about what's going on, you know, we have this exploration push right now, but we have this ISS push. And because my group covers the whole spectrum, I tend to view space very differently. You know, we tend to talk about space station and the low Earth orbit and what we're doing there, and we tend to think about what we're going to go do in lunar exploration with the gateway and the science and the research, and then eventually expand that to Mars. And what I think, the way I view this is I think we almost shouldn't be talking about those as separate things. We should think about those as an interconnected system. And how do we leverage what we're doing in low Earth orbit to lunar, or how do we leverage what we're doing lunar to low Earth orbit? How do we leverage all of it for our eventual goals to go out to Mars and explore the solar system? The analogy that I like to use is if you think about the Transcontinental Railroad, when that was built, you know, to connect the east and west of the U.S., it was a monumental undertaking. A lot of money invested in it, a lot of private money, believe it or not, invested in it. And you know, before that was built, it cost, in those year dollars, cost like $1,000 to get from the East Coast to the West Coast. After that railroad was built, it cost $150. Think about that. And then think about how we can leverage in space. So for SNC's vision, you know, we kind of start with the Dream Chaser program. That's our first piece. That's the low Earth orbit services to the space station, logistics services to the ISS, which it needs. And so that's our first piece. But then when we start looking at interplanetary or going to the moon and things like that, we focus on our gateway logistics services. Well, gateway logistics services, where you provide logistics to the gateway, is just like what we're doing for ISS, except the vehicle is going to be a little different, and the method of getting there is going to be a little different, and the requirements are different. But the cargo, and if you look at what they're doing for Gateway, the cargo requirements and the bags we're going to be using and the lockers we're going to be flying is the same stuff we're doing on ISS today. We're just expanding that out, and that's an example of that railroad getting tied together through logistics. Another piece we're working on that you can see on screen is a habitat module. We have an inflatable habitat. And the reason we do an inflatable habitat is that if you think commercially, there's multiple ways to get stuff out to the moon. We have SLS, but what if we can't ride on SLS? We want to make sure our habitat can fly in any commercial rocket. And because the habitat's inflatable, you can get up there with a huge amount of volume, but you can actually launch in a very compact space. And that's why we're doing it. We're actually getting ready to do a burst test out at Johnson Space Center in a couple of weeks, and our habitat's there for full-size testing too. But that's an example of it. But then when you start thinking about this railroad and this infrastructure, that habitat's not necessarily just for the Gateway, and maybe in the end it's not appropriate for Gateway. But where it might be appropriate is for a surface habitat, maybe on the moon, or a surface habitat, maybe on Mars, or an extension of the space station, use that module back in the low Earth orbit. Thinking about how they all connect and how you leverage technologies developed in one area for technologies delivered in another area. In addition to that, we're doing a lot of plant growth work. If you're familiar with the Veggie experiment that's on space station, that's our company. we're expanding that into the gateway. We call it an astro garden, where we can have more capability, provide fresh food for the astronauts, a limited amount of closed-loop eclipse from the oxygen the plants give off and the carbon dioxide they absorb, and working that hard. We're working on lunar regolith. We actually, our group up in Madison takes regolith and turns it into oxygen, and that's the in-situ resource reutilization that we're looking at for exploration. And we're also developing engines for lower cost and hopefully better reusability and primarily really lower cost to lower the price to space. So we see, I guess, Sam, my bottom line answer is I see the whole thing as a system, and I think if we can think about it as a system, think about how to leverage it. The truth is you can't do exploration without low Earth orbit capability, and vice versa.
Yeah, and that's what we call that the continuum of human spaceflight. It's all linked together.
Exactly.
You can't take one. If you take one part, you're going to leave a hole somewhere else.
And your plan has to include elements of that. Now, how much you do in each one of those areas depends on the need. But ideally, if you, for example, if you have an astronaut that wants to, or if you have science you need to do, it may be appropriate to do it in lunar orbit, but if it can be done in either place, you probably want to do it in low Earth orbit because it can be cheaper and more effective and more efficit.
Yeah. All right.
So.
We're nearing our time limit. So, Eren, I'd like to go to the last question.
Okay.
So for the women, talk about a little bit about women in aerospace.
Certainly.
And how you've seen our culture, in aerospace culture evolve. And do you have any advice for any young entrepreneurs or young women?
Yeah, certainly. It is really interesting. You just find out where your passion is when you are really young. So when I was a teenage girl, I watched this British TV, and there was this woman. She just ended up just leading the company when her husband died unexpectedly. So watching that was just really a defining moment for me to see that this is who I wanted to be. I see that myself in that. So, just going through the obviously challenges last three decades or almost 4, and being in the aerospace and defense industry where it's just male-dominated, I will say that things have been really interesting, and you just grow with learn, grow, adapt. I think adapting the environment is really important for one of the advice I would just give, that don't fight the system. Don't fight it. Just take advantage of, leverage what you can, and make your contribution. So I really never felt that I got discriminated, or I never felt that it was I had a disadvantage doing what I was doing, because I focused on what I can contribute. So that was my focus. So Fadi and I have just we just don't like the entitlement concept. That's really a concept that is very foreign to us. So do your best, do your job, and contribute to whatever you can to the society. And that kind of gets you up there. But I just see a big shift right now. I think the people like me, very strong female leaders, leading the big companies. I mean, when you look at this, it really tells us that there's a major shift going on in the United States. You look at Lockheed Martin, Boeing Defense, Northrop Grumman, General Dynamics, and SpaceX. I mean, I know those female leaders, and I'm so proud that these companies choose female leaders. I'm proud to be one of them. So I'm really proud that Vice President Pence made a goal to send the first female astronaut. So that's a huge inspirational thing I think, for all of us to have that goal. So what I would just really recommend to young female entrepreneurs, the girls, I would say dream big and follow your dreams. That is so important. But it is going to be a lot of hard work. You got to have the courage. You got to have the tenacity. You got to have the resilience. And but it's very rewarding. It is very rewarding. There's no shortcut. And never give up. Follow your dreams, and also be a role model. I mean, that's what I would just. Every one of us are role models. So it doesn't take a lot to be a role model.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, I want to personally thank you, Eren, very much, and
thank
Steve
you.
for coming and participating here in the conference
Certainly.
this week and being here in Atlanta. And please give a warm thank you to Eren and Steve. Thanks.
Thank you very much. All right, thank you very much, Eren and Steve, for your truly inspirational stories and the great conversation. I can tell you as a female in the engineering in the aerospace field, Eren's story really resonates with me, and she serves as a role model for many of us in the industry. Before we break for lunch, I just want to announce a first in spaceflight that's happened while we have been sitting here this morning. Some of you may not realize Progress launched right before we started at about 8:10. In 2 orbits, it has docked to ISS. 90 minutes, launch to docking.